Welcome, everyone, to episode 4 of Reading Finnegans Wake in 200 sessions. For those of you who've been with us on this marathon journey, today's plunge into pages 10-15 offers, well, a concentrated microcosm of Joyce's genius. It really blurs landscapes, historical epochs, and even, human identity. You've sent us an incredible stack of sources, and our mission, as always, is to navigate this legendary labyrinth and pinpoint the truly surprising insights that will deepen your appreciation for this monumental work. Okay, let's unpack this. It's dense, but delightful, this deep dive. We're moving from the close air of a hidden museum out into a windswept battlefield that really echoes with ancient conflicts. And then suddenly, we encounter this very particular, surprisingly profound hen. From there, we'll witness history unfolding through the peculiar lens of a blue book, eventually finding ourselves contemplating the enduring beauty of wildflowers amidst the very arenas where wars have raged for millennia. It's a journey that doesn't just challenge our understanding of time and narrative. It pretty much outright redefines it.
Indeed, these few pages are a masterclass, aren't they? A true microcosm of Finnegans Wake as a whole. They really showcase Joyce's deep engagement with Irish history, its rich mythology, and of course his unparalleled linguistic play. It's just astonishing. What's truly fascinating here, and something any dedicated Wake reader will recognize, is how he seamlessly interweaves these grand historical narratives with the utterly mundane, the intensely domestic, and the serene beauty of the natural world. We're going to explore how specific, identifiable places in Dublin become characters in themselves, and how monumental historical events don't just echo, but sort of cyclically reenact through time, and how even the most unlikely figures, like a scavenging hen, can carry immense symbolic weight that holds the universe together. This raises an important question for us, and for you, the listener. What happens when history isn't a linear progression of cause and effect? What if it's a continuous, recurring loop, seen through different, often conflicting, and frankly, always unreliable lenses? Night, the hen in the battlefield, a scavenger's eye view, FW 10.24, 12.17.
We begin with such a vivid sensory shift right away, don't we? Leaving the close air of the museum for the refreshing airabouts outside. The text immediately describes it as a pretty candlelit house with 29 windows. This immediate transition feels incredibly significant, almost disorienting. What's happening here? Why this sudden, almost dreamlike change of scenery and atmosphere?
This is classic Wake-in transformation, isn't it? Where places are remarkably fluid, constantly morphing, taking on multiple identities at the same time. Joyce is always challenging our perception of fixed reality, Our sources confirm that this pretty candlelit house with 29 windows is, well, it's a wonderfully evocative image, but it's also a direct allusion to Castletown House.
Ah, right, the big Palladian mansion in Kildare.
Exactly. Iconic 18th century place. It was famously known for its astonishing number of windows. There was even a local myth, that it had one for each day of the year. A bit of hyperbole Joyce would have loved, I think. But it's not just a stately home. It's immediately intertwined with the lamp of Jig-o'-lantern.
Jig-o'-lantern. Like a jack-o'-lantern.
Sort of, yeah, or more profoundly, a will-o'-the-wisp. So it's not just a light source, it's something misleading, something that might promise guidance but could actually lead you astray. It cleverly foreshadows the playful deceptions and multiple, often contradictory meanings woven throughout the entire text. And that specific number, 29, described as quaintly mine, that's a talismanic number specifically associated with Issy, the daughter character. It subtly hints at her presence or influence, her youthful, sometimes elusive energy, even in this early setting. It shows how deeply interconnected every single detail in the Wake really is.
Wow. So the setting isn't just a static backdrop for events. It's already layered with historical reference, mythical undertones, and potential misdirection. This place that's actively hinting at its own mutability, almost a character in itself.
Yeah.
I wonder, is Joyce using this fluidity just for poetic effect, or is there a deeper point about the instability of all perceived realities, not just geographical ones?
That's a fantastic question, and it cuts right to the heart of Joyce's project here, doesn't it? He's deliberately eroding our faith in fixed definitions and singular realities. And the landscape doesn't stop there in its transformations. It rapidly opens up from this specific house to a veritable table of green fields, which almost immediately transforms into a very tableland of Bleakbard fields.
Bleakbard fields.
Yeah,
that sounds ominous.
It is. This isn't just a picturesque pastoral scene designed to relax us. The phrase Bleakbard fields is a direct and incredibly powerful allusion to the Battle of Kosovo.
Kosovo, really?
Specifically, the Battle of the Field of Blackbirds, fought in 1389. So it instantly grounds us in a monumental historical battlefield, not just any generic green expanse. It's a site of profound historical trauma and national identity for many. Furthermore, the phrase itself is a brilliant double pun, playing on veritable tableland, a flat elevated region, and Shakespeare's poignant table of green fields from King Henry V.
Ah, Falstaff's death.
Exactly, a line often associated with Falstaff's death. So what Joyce is doing is immediately establishing that we're not simply looking at a landscape. We're traversing a battleground of history, mythology, and indeed language itself, where every word carries echoes of other words, other stories, other conflicts. It's a deliberate fracturing of stable meaning, inviting us to see the landscape as an active participant in history.
Okay, so amidst this shifting, historically charged landscape, a gnarly bird appears, picking and pecking. Our sources tell us she's a paradise bird, a fairy godmother, a pinprick in the landscape with a sack on her back. Who is this intriguing creature, and what exactly is her behavior job in this aftermath of implied conflict? She sounds like a very unusual heroine.
Oh, this gnarly bird is without doubt a profoundly central figure. She's widely identified in our sources as Anna Livia Pluribel, or ALP, the maternal archetype in Finnegans Wake.
Right, ALP, often Biddy the hen.
Precisely. Biddy the hen, a humble, domestic, yet incredibly significant creature, embodying the enduring spirit of creation and reclamation. Her timidity, her fear of the cracking of thunder and lightning, suggests a cautious, almost vulnerable nature, but also perhaps a wisdom that understands the destructive power of grand external forces. She only comes out when all is not quiet, waiting specifically for Armistice Day, a day of peace and truce.
Armistice Day, like 1918.
Exactly. This connects her actions not just to any peaceful moment, but to the resolution of conflict and, crucially, to its aftermath. The text specifically refers to Armistice Tunai, strongly linked to Armistice Day 1918, that pivotal moment of global peace after World War I. So she's not just a casual scavenger, she's an agent of restoration and quiet persistence after chaos, embodying the patient, cyclical return to life.
And what is she collecting? It sounds like quite a motley assortment of items that she scoops up. What kind of presents does she fashion from these spoils?
Her behavior at job, as you say, is to scavenge and collect. It's what she does. To see by, she's borrowed a coacher's headlight, which is maybe a coachman's lamp or a subtle reference to Sean's recurring belted lamp motif, hinting at the tools of others. Into her knapsack go all the spoiled goods that she can find strewn about the place. And the list is incredibly evocative and rich with symbolic weight. Spent cartridges, torn-off buttons, old boots and cast-out bottles, clavicles and scapulas, maps, keys, pennies, and brooches.
Wow, fragments of everything.
Exactly. These aren't just random bits of junk. They are the fragmented remnants of human conflict, daily life, the casualties of time, what our sources aptly call the litter of the past.
Yeah.
And then Joyce just unleashes this torrent of punning language to describe the collection. Boasted night garters and masses of shoe sets and nickely necks and fodder all Michael and a lugly parson of cates and howitzer machairs and midgers and maggots, ills and ells with locks of toss and plurs of bells.
Goodness, that's a mouthful. What's going on there?
It's not just a list, it's a linguistic crucible where Joyce melts down the entire spectrum of human experience. ALP, the ultimate scavenger, is transforming the masculine remnants of war like howitzer and the feminine details of domestic life like night garters, shoe sets, bells, along with references to Parisian bridges, even gendered figures, ills and ells for he's and she's, talks and bells, into a unified, if chaotic, litter of the past. It's a powerful conceptual statement, really. It suggests how the seemingly disparate fragments of our world are endlessly recycled and resignified by this eternal feminine principle.
So it sounds like ALP isn't merely a scavenger, but almost a curator of lost time, giving new meaning to these scattered remnants of history.
That's a fantastic way to put it, because what she's collecting isn't just refuse, but what our sources call historic presents.
Historic presents, like gifts.
Yes, but also like fragments of the past that are not simply being retrieved, but are actively represented, transformed into a form of gifts for future generations. It speaks to a fundamental human act of making sense, of crafting continuity out of chaos. The text notes it was beautiful of her to steal our historic presents.
Steal them. That's interesting.
Yes, stealing, reclaiming, preserving. It highlights her crucial role as the transmitter of the litter of the past. It suggests that history isn't just passively recorded, but actively recycled, reinterpreted, and represented by her. It implies that the grand conflicts of humanity like Greeks may rise and Trojans fall, with that suggestive pun on pricks rise and Krausers fall, are to her small potatoes. And this isn't just a humorous aside, it's a profound reevaluation of human conflict from a perspective of eternal maternal practicality. She knows her essential, enduring task is far more significant than the transient dramas of human ambition.
She's almost like a historical archaeologist then, but with a more personal maternal touch. Yet, the text describes her as mercenary, even as she's dedicated to push the business of living on. How do we reconcile this apparent contradiction? Self-interest versus selflessness.
Her mercenary nature in this specific context isn't necessarily negative or greedy, I think. It speaks more to her deep-seated practicality, her unwavering resourcefulness, and her relentless focus on survival and the perpetuation of life against all odds. The text illustrates this vividly, even if the land were to lie under liquidation or flute. That's a powerful double entendre, suggesting both financial ruin, bankruptcy, and a devastating flood.
Right.
She would search the world for cockles to eat to ensure sustenance. She finds a way, and crucially, even if her man Humpty were to fall, Frumpty times is awkward again, echoing the nursery rhyme and hinting at HCE's recurring downfall and public humiliation, there would still be eggs for his breakfast come the morning, sunny side up with care.
The ultimate nurturer.
Exactly. It paints this powerful picture of enduring resilience, a tireless, almost primal drive to sustain life and ensure continuity amidst any debacle or chaos of history. She embodies the eternal, adaptable force of life itself, constantly rebuilding, nourishing, and carrying on, regardless of the grand dramas around her.
So as ALP is busy with her behavior job, we're invited to take our review of the two mounds and then a sweeping tour of Dublin's hills. Cork Hill, Arbor Hill, Summer Hill, Misery Hill, Constitution Hill, along with Olaf Road and Citric Road. This feels like we're being given a comprehensive tour of the city itself, but maybe one that reveals its hidden histories.
We are indeed, and it's a tour with a purpose, absolutely. These aren't just geographical features, they are deeply layered historical markers, each with its own story, its own resonance in the tapestry of Dublin. Misery Hill, for instance, refers to a grim historical fact. It was where lepers gathered in the 11th century. A haunting reminder of the city's past suffering. And the roads, Olaf and Citric, are named after the legendary Viking founders of Dublin. Though our sources point out their foundational tales were later disproved, which just adds to the layers of historical interpretation and reinterpretation that Joyce revels in.
He loves that ambiguity, doesn't he?
He thrives on it. And the two mounds, they're also implicitly the feet of the buried giant, HCE, who, as the text describes, lays dormant from the macroburg of Holdhard to the microburg of Pied de Poudre, essentially from Howth Head, the giant's head, to Phoenix Park, the giant's feet.
The sleeping giant of Dublin.
Exactly. This vividly evokes that recurring motif of Dublin itself as a colossal sleeping giant slumbering beneath the daily lives of its inhabitants. What's fascinating here is how Joyce doesn't just list these places. He infuses them with living history, transforming mere geography into characters themselves, with stories both legendary and grim.
And it's on this profoundly layered landscape that his Dubliners are described in such vivid, almost comical terms. Bustling about and going to and fro, trying to eke out an excuse for an existence, scraping along to squeeze out a likelihood that will solve and salve life's Robulous Rebus, hopping like herrings on a griddle. It's a very memorable and almost absurd image.
It's a crucial passage, isn't it? It powerfully ties the everyday, bustling life of Dubliners to the vast, dormant, almost mythological figure of the giant beneath their city. They are literally hopping around his middle, seemingly unaware of the monumental history and mythology they inhabit, yet their very movements are dictated by it. The phrase, life's Robulous Rebus, is just brilliant Joycean punning.
Romulus and Remus.
Yeah.
And a puzzle.
Exactly. Playing on Romulus and Remus, the legendary founders of Rome, one of whom killed the other, and the idea of a rebus, a word puzzle. This isn't just about making a living. Joyce is implying that the very act of existing, of navigating daily life in a city built on buried giants and ancient conflicts, is a perpetual, enigmatic puzzle. Like Romulus and Remus, constantly in conflict, Dubliners are engaged in a daily struggle to define themselves against a backdrop of inherited, often violent history, and the scraping along. It also subtly refers to the playing of string instruments.
Really? How?
Well, there's a sequence implied in the names of the various hills listed, linking the city's sounds, struggles, and history to a broader underlying musicality. It's a symphony of urban struggle, sometimes discordant, sometimes harmonious, all playing out on the body of a sleeping giant.
Then our view narrows again after this grand sweep of the city to focus back on the museum, which is now revealed to be the magazine fort in Phoenix Park. And we get a sharp satirical quote from Swift. This feels like a deliberate shift from the physical city to its intellectual and historical critique. Is Joyce using Swift here to comment on something specific about Irish identity or history?
Absolutely, it's a very pointed choice. The fort, which is spuriously attributed in some accounts to Wharton's folly, becomes a symbol of Irish sense and Irish wit. And the Swiftian quote is wonderfully biting and cynical. When nothing's left that's worth defense, we build a magazine.
Ouch, that's sharp.
It is. It's a powerful, sardonic commentary on Irish affairs and governance, suggesting a futile or misguided patriotism, perhaps even a national tendency to shore up the irrelevant when the essential has already been lost. What's even more significant, though, is how this magazine then conflates in Joyce's extraordinary and undifferentiated worldview with forts, museums, tumuli, and inns. They all become one and the same.
So distinctions just dissolve.
Exactly. Historical distinctions, temporal boundaries, even functional purposes all blur. A military magazine can be a fort, a museum, a tomb, a tavern, a historical repository. This fluidity challenges our conventional understanding of categorization and time itself. For Joyce, all these spaces are repositories of collective memory and history, constantly shifting and merging.
And this blurring of distinctions brings us to an ancient engraving hung on a wall, a distortion in which appearances are misleading.
This sounds like another recurring motif Joyce uses to question reality, doesn't it?
Yes, this is a very significant first appearance of what will become a recurring motif throughout Finnegans Wake, the calendar picture or almanac picture. It's described as an outwashed engravure, reminiscent of those sentimental, often faded prints often found hanging in old taverns.
Right, I can picture that. It represents a distorted, perhaps idealized, or even deliberately false view of the past history as a charming but ultimately inaccurate or incomplete picture, filtered through nostalgia or selective memory. But Joyce doesn't want us to be passive viewers. The text then emphasizes that this isn't just about passive observation. We're told to look for himself, an Irish pun on feach, meaning look, followed by DBLN, WKOO here, and list, Wheatstone's magic lyre. These injunctions specifically highlight that this isn't just about seeing, but about actively listening, interpreting, and being acutely aware of illusions and multiple sensory perceptions. The Optophone, an instrument designed to convert light to sound for the blind, and the magic lyre, referencing Charles Wheatstone's device that made a piano's vibrations audible.
Wow, blurring the senses.
Exactly. It further blurs sensory perception, highlighting the text's profound auditory richness and its demand for multisensory engagement. This section emphasizes that what we see or hear, like the noises of falls and the keens of wakes, is not just isolated phenomena, but part of an eternal echo, perpetually repeating and intertwined. It challenges us to truly perceive the underlying cyclical patterns. Joyce is effectively giving us a masterclass in how to read his own complex text versus history's blue book. 4 figures, 4 events, FW 13.0 to 14.15.
This leads us directly into a discussion of history itself, with 4 crooners at Tim Finnegans Wake exhibited as historians. They present a blue book of history. What's the significance of this blue book, and who are these historians in Joyce's kaleidoscopic, often irreverent view?
Well, our sources confirm what any dedicated Wake reader would immediately grasp. These 4 crooners, or as the text cryptically calls them, hereditary Mammon Lugius, are Joyce's playful yet respectful nod to the venerable Four-Masters.
The actual Irish historians.
The very ones. Real scholars like Michael O'Clery, Peregrine O'Dwyn, and the others, who famously compiled the Annals of the Four-Masters, a monumental chronicle of Irish history, really the bedrock of Irish historical consciousness. By invoking Herodotus, the father of history, Joyce immediately places their work within a grand, ancient historical tradition, and the bluest book in Bale's Annals. It references both these specific historical annals and the blue books, which were official, often dense, and widely circulated reports of the English Parliament.
Okay, so official records.
Right. But blue can also carry connotations of something obscene or scandalous, hinting at hidden or maybe scandalous truths that might be buried within this formal historical record. What Joyce then does with this authoritative record, however, is where the real mischief and profound insight begin. It suggests that history, even when presented formally and authoritatively, is always a partial, potentially biased, incomplete, and perhaps even salacious record.
So even the way history is presented, its very format and potential biases, is part of the deep dive subject. It's not just the events, but the active historical recording itself that Joyce is dissecting.
Absolutely. The medium is very much part of the message here. These historians then declare 4 things that shall never fail. These are canonical figures in Finnegans Wake, representing the core family archetypes that drive much of the narrative. They provide a structural backbone that readers can sort of cling to amidst the linguistic chaos. First, we have the swelled head of an alderman, HCE.
HCE, the father figure.
Right. The patriarch, often likened to a great authority or even a geographical feature like Mount Ben Bulben. He's the monumental, often problematic, and publicly shamed authority figure, the giant upon whose belly Dubliners dance. It signifies power, but also its eventual overreach and downfall. Second, a shoe on a poor old woman, ALP.
Aunt Olivia, the mother.
Exactly, ALP. The image connects her to goody two-shoes, suggesting innocence and virtue, and the Sean van Volkt, that poetic nationalist name for Ireland meaning poor old woman. The shoe here signifies her grounded, earthy presence, her connection to the land, to endurance, and to the everyday, providing stability and continuity. Third, a maid to be deserted, Issy,
The daughter, Issy.
Yes, often associated with auburn hair, a detail linked to Nora Barnacle, Joyce's wife. This archetype evokes themes of youthful innocence, beauty, abandonment, and longing, often in the face of predatory male figures. The phrase O'Brien a bride subtly links her to the sea, or maybe to the ancient Irish hero Brian Baru, adding layers of myth, national identity, and perhaps even a sense of inevitable sacrifice. And fourth, pens and post, Shem and Sean, C and D.
The twin sons, the writer and the postman.
Precisely, representing that perennial dichotomy. The artist-writer, Shem, the penman, the subjective, introverted creator, and the public figure postman, Sean, the objective, extroverted, authoritarian messenger. The phrase, pen no weightier nor a pole post, is a clear allusion to the proverb, the pen is mightier than the sword, highlighting the enduring power of art, language, and communication against brute physical force.
These four figures really do seem to be the anchors, the recurring archetypes throughout the Wake, providing a familiar cast of characters in a wildly unfamiliar narrative.
Yes, they are the central players, and what's particularly striking is how these archetypes are then shown to be shifting on in time and found to correspond point for point to four dated entries in the Annals. This is where the cyclical, nonlinear nature of time, Joyce's grand historical vision, truly comes to the forefront in Finnegans Wake.
Okay, let's hear these dates.
All right, let's look at these specific entries, because they are densely packed with meaning. First, for HCE, the father figure, we have 1132 AD. Men like ants, emmets, crawl all over a great fish. This describes the patriarchal figure, HCE, in his state of public scrutiny or downfall. The Groot-wide Walfisk, great white whale,
Moby Dick.
could be a subtle nod to Melville, yeah, but more broadly represents the monumental, perhaps fallen patriarch being scrutinized and picked over by smaller, seemingly insignificant figures, much like the Dubliners themselves. This date, 1132, it isn't arbitrary. It's a masterclass in symbolic compression. On one level, it breaks down numerically. 1 + 1 + 3 + 2 sums to 7, which is HCE's number, linking grand history to intimate domestic drama.
Clever.
Very. But zoom out, and our sources show Joyce also uses it to represent the perceived 1132-year lifespan of the Roman Empire, from 753 BC to 378 AD, accounting for the BCA year skip. So in one date, he's giving us a personal family drama and a universal cycle of imperial rise and fall. It suggests that even monumental institutions have a finite millennium before they, too, undergo their inevitable fall.
So 1132 is like the fall date.
Exactly. It marks the perceived millennium of an institution, the moment of decline, mirroring HCE's recurring fall. This date is also associated with the death of the legendary Finn McCool at 283 AD, and 283 multiplied by 4 is 1132, and the birth of St. Lawrence O'Toole, and crucially the sacrilegious actions of Dermot McMurrough razing Kildare Abbey, raping the abbess, and the subsequent events leading to the Norman invasion of Ireland. It's a nexus of violence, sacrilege, and the seeds of national transformation. Next, for ALP, the mother figure, we find 566 AD. A crone peers into a kish of brogues, a fish basket full of shoes.
ALP again.
It's directly representing ALP, the maternal archetype. The crone is searching, collecting, much like the hen we discussed earlier, implying humble, earthy wisdom and the act of reclamation. A kish of brogues implies an ignorant as a kish of brogues, referring to Irish dialect and perhaps a poor old woman, linking her to the national identity of the Sean van Volkt. And the year 566, it's exactly half of 1132.
Ah, the cycle.
Creating an immediate cyclical link between ALP and HCE, emphasizing the recurring nature of these archetypes. It's also Balefire's Night, or Beltane, an ancient Celtic May Day celebration, connecting her to primal, cyclical forces of renewal and fertility. Then there's a telling silence in the text, and then 566 AD again. At this time, a maid is ravished by an ogre.
Issy's turn.
This refers to Issy, the daughter, highlighting a moment of innocence lost or violent intrusion. The brazen-locked damsel with auburn hair, remember?
Linked to Nora Barnacle.
Right. She's ravished of her puppet, her minion, by the ogre Paropius Pius. This combines themes of innocence lost, violent intrusion, and perhaps even childbirth, with a grim reference to puerperal fever. Very. And the specific reference to Danae, locked in a brass tower in Greek mythology, connects to the idea of a father trying to prevent a prophecy about his child, adding layers of myth and fate to Issy's story. The silence here isn't an absence, it's a gap between ages, a narrative ellipsis that forces us, the readers, to connect these profound, traumatic dots across time. It suggests some historical events are so painful or unrecordable they only exist as a void. Finally, for Shem and Sean, the twin sons, we return to 1132 AD. Two sons are born to a good man and his hag. They're called Caddy and Primus. Caddy writes and Primus drills.
Back to the fall date.
Exactly. This clearly refers to the twin sons, embodying their contrasting roles. Caddy, the cadet, or younger son, is the writer, who went to Winehouse and wrote O Piece of Farce, a piece of verse, emphasizing his creative, intellectual, often subversive role. Primus, the firstborn, is the soldier or sentryman who drilled all decent people, highlighting his physical, orderly, and perhaps authoritarian persona. This starkly